I was given 5 minutes to clear my desk before my husband's father, the CEO, dismissed me in front of the entire leadership team. Instead of breaking, I smiled and simply said, "Thank you." One by one, 22 colleagues rose quietly and followed me out. Nia sneered, until the legal director turned pale and whispered, "Get the lawyer now." 4 minutes and 30 seconds left, Nicholas announced, his Rolex catching the light as he tapped its face. I continued packing my drawer, removing 6 years of work, project files, team photos, the backup drive containing every system architecture I had built for Vertex Solutions. 12 executives sat in silence as I placed each item deliberately into a cardboard box. Nia Blackwood leaned back, inspecting her manicured nails with feigned boredom. She believed she had won. 4 minutes, Nicholas called again, his tone sharp with authority. That's when Logan Mitchell rose from his desk outside the glass conference room wall, laptop bag in hand. But let me explain how we reached this point, how 3 weeks of careful betrayal brought me here, with my father-in-law counting down my professional execution like a kitchen timer. Before I continue, thank you for being here. If you believe dedication and hard work should matter more than office politics, consider subscribing. It helps more people hear stories like this. Now, let's look at how Nicholas set his plan in motion. It began at Sunday dinner at the Harrington estate, where we gathered like reluctant actors in a play no one wanted to perform. I had arrived with Taylor and my homemade apple pie, the one with the lattice crust that took 2 hours to perfect. Eleanor always requested it, though she never mentioned who baked it, as if pies appeared out of thin air or from the staff. Another record quarter for Vertex Solutions, Nicholas declared, standing at the head of the oversized mahogany dining table, designed for 20 but usually seating just 4. He raised his crystal glass, whiskey catching the chandelier's light. "We're dominating the market because I know how to recognize talent and put it where it belongs." His hand landed on Taylor's shoulder, with the weight of inheritance. My husband glowed under the praise, though his contribution was little more than sharing the right last name and attending meetings he barely understood. No one acknowledged the Henderson account I had saved 2 nights earlier. No mention of the Morrison Industries contract I secured after 3 sleepless weekends. While Nicholas sipped whiskey at his country club, I rebuilt our entire server infrastructure after a catastrophic failure. "You look tired, dear," Eleanor murmured, her diamond-covered fingers brushing my shoulder. "Perhaps you should consider better work-life balance. Appearance matters, especially for women in leadership." I swallowed both my reply and my overcooked salmon. The truth was, I looked tired because I had been awake for 36 hours straight. Admitting it would only prove their unspoken point that I was overwhelmed. Mornings with Taylor had become a routine of disconnect. He fiddled with the expensive espresso machine his parents gifted us, serving burnt coffee while scrolling through sports updates. "Big week ahead?" he asked, one Tuesday, 2 weeks before everything collapsed. "I should hear about the promotion today." "Right, the promotion." He sipped his coffee. "Dad mentioned Nia Sepp's been impressive lately. She's been staying late, taking on extra projects." Nia Blackwood, who arrived at 9:30 sharp and left at 5, the same Nia I had been training for 3 months at Nicholas's request. "She just needs mentoring," he said. I had opened my playbook, shared strategies, explained client relationships with the patience of a teacher. She took notes in her designer portfolio, asking questions that seemed innocent. "How do you handle failures? What's your backup protocol? Who has admin access?" I thought she was eager. She was preparing a case. The server migration crisis should have been my vindication. A week before Nicholas slammed his palm on that table, our entire infrastructure required emergency transfer 40 terabytes, 8 hours, 0 room for error. Everything went wrong. Corrupted files, failed backups, even a power surge that shouldn't have happened. By 10 p.m., I activated my emergency protocol. My team arrived without hesitation. Logan still had his daughter Emma's recital program pinned to his shirt. Priya apologized to her husband for missing their anniversary dinner before diving into code. Marcus, Sarah, the Morrison twins, they all came. The conference room became our bunker. Laptops, energy drinks, and untouched Chinese takeout everywhere. We're like some dysfunctional family. Marcus joked at 2 a.m. Yeah, but at least we chose each other, Sarah replied. Her words stayed with me. We saved everything, every file, every contract. Nicholas would never know we came within 3 keystrokes of losing millions. That was my job, preventing disasters so quietly. No one knew they had occurred. Then came the email, the mistake that revealed everything. At 11:47 p.m., reviewing the Henderson files for my promotion presentation, I received a message from Nia that wasn't meant for me. Nicholas, as discussed, I successfully salvaged the Henderson situation. The client was impressed with my crisis management. I believe it sets time to discuss restructuring. She seems overwhelmed. Arrives looking exhausted most mornings. Perhaps fresh leadership would benefit the department. I reread it 3 times. The Henderson crisis, one I personally managed while Nia posted Instagram stories at a wine tasting. I forwarded it to my personal account on instinct. My last defense, sitting in my office in a coffee-stained blouse after 18 hours, I realized dedication looked like weakness to those who never truly worked. 3 minutes, Nicholas announced, now snapping me out of memory. The executive stayed frozen. But through the glass I saw Priya rise, then Marcus, then Sarah. One by one my team, my chosen family, stood. 2 minutes, Nicholas called, his voice distant. The 15th floor froze in disbelief. Sarah lifted her phone. The Morrison twins stood in shock. I reached for our last team photo, from when we worked 72 hours straight to launch the Patterson project. My hand brushed against a USB drive taped beneath my desk, the one containing every email, document, and piece of evidence. Apparently some day had arrived. That morning had felt wrong from the start. The security guard avoided my eyes at 6:45 a.m. The elevator seemed too quiet. The 15th floor felt as if it were holding its breath. When I reached the conference room for my presentation on our 340% efficiency increase, Nia was already in my seat. Laptop open to spreadsheets, I instantly recognized my department's confidential budget projections. Good morning, she said sweetly. Nicholas asked me to review these before the meeting. You don't set mind, do you? The question wasn't set a question. How did you access those files? I asked. She looked up, mask slipping for just a second, satisfaction flashing across her face, before returning to feigned innocence. Nicholas gave me temporary admin privileges to help with the transition. Transition. The word landed like a sentence. The room filled wrong. David from finance arrived first, avoiding eye contact. Then Margaret from legal, usually composed, but today pale and restless. Even the coffee was missing. No one had started the machine. Today, the room held only silence, with the faint mix of sweat and expensive cologne. I began my presentation anyway, clicking through slides that showed our progress, metrics, and results. My voice stayed steady, even as the energy in the room shifted, preparing for something I couldn't yet name. As you can see, we've exceeded every target. The door burst open with such force that the handle slammed against the wall. Nicholas entered. His face flushed the shade. It always turned when his blood pressure medication failed him. His Italian suit looked out of place, creased, his tie crooked. He crossed the room in 3 strides, slamming his palm on the table hard enough to rattle cups. Margaret's coffee spilled across her legal pad, but she didn't move. You have 5 minutes to clear your desk. At first, The words didn't register. I stood frozen. Presentation remote, still in hand. Slide 17, glowing behind me. A chart of the money I had saved this company. Then it all fit together. Why Nia had my files. Why the executives avoided eye contact. Why Margaret seemed ready to break. This wasn't spontaneous. It had been planned. Everyone knew, except me. Nia leaned back in my chair calmly admiring her manicure with the satisfaction of someone convinced they had won. But 20 years in tech had taught me the moment you believe you've won is often the moment you're most at risk. David Park's fingers flew across his calculator, a familiar rhythm I'd seen in budget crises and contract disputes. Margaret typed quickly on her phone, face pale, knowing what Nicholas and Nia hadn't considered the cost of firing someone in public versus handling it privately. I placed the clicker down calmly. My grandmother's words came to me. She had survived the Depression and raised 6 children on her own. When they expect you to break, that's when you stand the straightest. Thank you, I said, clear and steady, and I meant it. I felt unexpected relief. 6 years of pretending I belonged in Taylor's family. 6 years of Eleanor's subtle remarks about my appearance. 6 years of fixing every crisis while never being truly accepted. Nicholas's jaw slackened. He'd expected tears, protests, anger, anything but gratitude. Behind him, executives exchanged looks. A pen dropped to the floor, the sharp sound echoing in the silence. I began packing my belongings with the same precision I used to build system architectures. Backup drive first, then files. The team photo, my chipped coffee mug. 1 minute, Nicholas announced, but his tone wavered. The first crack in his confidence appeared. Through the glass wall, I saw movement. Logan Mitchell stood, laptop bag already over his shoulder. Not packing, but ready. Then Pritchia rose. Then Marcus, one after another. My team stood. Nicholas turned to see them, and the color drained from his face. Nelia's expression shifted from victory to confusion to panic. "Time's up," Nicholas said, but it sounded more like a question. I lifted the box, 6 years of work condensed into what I could carry, and walked toward the door. 2 security guards appeared, apologetic. "Sorry about this," Tom whispered. "Dawn set B," I replied. "You set just doing your job." We moved through the cubicles toward the elevator. Then came the sound, the scrape of chairs, the thud of laptops closing, bags being lifted. Logan stepped beside me. Priya followed, her heels striking with determination. Marcus, Sarah, the Morrison twins. One by one, they joined. By the time we reached the elevator, 22 people walked with me. Tom stopped, his voice low. "In 15 years, I've never seen anything like this." Neither had Nicholas, though he wouldn't realize the collapse of his empire for another 2 days. The elevator doors shut on 22 employees and 1 security guard, who looked as though he'd just witnessed either a miracle or a disaster. He wasn't sure which. No one spoke on the ride down, only the hum of machinery and phones buzzing in waves. First mine, then Logan's, then Priya's. Soon everyone's devices erupted with notifications. The doors opened to the lobby, sunlight flooding in. Maria at reception stood so fast, her chair rolled into the wall. Gerald, the maintenance supervisor, paused mid-mop as we walked past. Someone began clapping from the loading dock, others joined until it echoed across the garage walls. "This is insane," Priya whispered. "This is justice," Logan corrected. Outside in the parking lot, 23 of us stood blinking in the harsh sun, phones buzzing constantly. The Morrison twins were already typing on laptops from the curb. Sarah spoke quickly into her phone, likely explaining to her partner why she was unemployed before noon on a Tuesday. "I should go," I said quietly. "We all should," Marcus replied, though no one moved. We stood together, like survivors of a wreck, unwilling to turn our backs on what was sinking. The drive home took 17 minutes. I watched the clock the whole way. My phone vibrated endlessly on the seat beside me, but I resisted checking. Taylor's car was in the driveway. He worked from home Tuesdays and Thursdays, a benefit Nicholas had granted his son but would never extend to me, despite my longer service and higher role. I sat for a moment, listening to the tick of the cooling engine. The house looked unchanged. Same cherry tree, same driveway crack, but everything had shifted. Taylor opened the door, laptop in hand, confusion on his face. His office setup glowed behind him. "Why are you home? Are you sick?" Then he saw the box. His expression shifted through confusion, concern, realization, then anger. "Dad called. He said you lost control in the meeting. Said you were unstable, that you cried. Security had to escort you out." I placed the box on the ornate entry table. His mother had gifted us. "Is that what he said?" "He said you Stev been struggling, that Nia had to cover for your mistakes, that he had no choice." I pulled out my phone, ignoring the flood of alerts, and showed him the email. Nia's email taking credit for the Henderson account, portraying me as overwhelmed. It was clearly part of a longer exchange with Nicholas. Taylor read it twice. His jaw clenched, the same tell his father had when faced with facts he couldn't spin. "When did she send this?" 3 weeks ago. She sent it to me by mistake. "And you didn't tell me. Would you have believed me? Or would you have said Nia made an honest mistake, and your father would never sabotage me?" The silence between us was sharp. Taylor set down his laptop and ran his hands through his hair, another inherited habit. "I need to think," he muttered, grabbing his keys. "I just need to think." Taylor. But the door shut behind him with finality. I stood there in my work clothes, surrounded by the life we had built, realizing how fragile it truly was. My phone rang, an unknown number. For a moment, I almost ignored it, but instinct or maybe exhaustion made me answer. "Please, Dawn," said hang up. Margaret Lawson's voice came through in a whisper. She was calling from the executive bathroom on the 16th floor, the one rarely used. "Your contract. The clause on hostile termination. Nicholas never read it. Legal reviewed it when you were hired 6 years ago, but he just signed where I told him to sign." Her words rushed out quickly. "The humiliation multiplier alone guarantees $800,000 in severance. With documented harassment and 22 witnesses, we're looking at millions." I asked why she was telling me this. The sound of running water echoed before she answered. "Because in about an hour, Nicholas will realize what he's done, and when he does, he'll blame me, say I should have warned him. I've worked here 12 years, covered for his temper, his affairs, his poor decisions. But this will end my career. Can we meet tomorrow, somewhere off Vertex grounds? I have documentation, things that could help us both." The call ended before I could reply. My phone immediately buzzed again. Dylan from my former team had sent a screenshot. It showed a Slack channel called The Exodus, with 247 members, before it was shut down. The messages were a mix of disbelief, support, and concern. Did this really happen? 22 people walked out? What happens to the Henderson project? Who will maintain the servers? LinkedIn showed 47 new notifications. Emails poured in. 3 competitors had already reached out with versions of "heard the news. Let's talk." But one email made me pause. Catherine Walsh, the venture capitalist who rejected Nicholas's pitch 6 months ago for lacking leadership. Her message was short. "Your team's loyalty is worth more than Vertex's entire market cap. Let's build something." I was reading it a third time when the doorbell rang. At 9 p.m., Eleanor Harrington stood on my porch, makeup smudged, holding a manila folder tightly. "May I come in?" she asked. For the first time in 6 years, she looked fragile. Not the confident society matron I knew, but a woman carrying burdens she could no longer hide. I stepped aside. She entered the house she sipped helped fund, but never welcomed me into, standing awkwardly before following me to the living room. She sat on the edge of the couch, folder still clutched. Nicholas fired his own brother this way, 20 years ago. Edward. He was CFO from the start. She opened the folder, revealing old board minutes and printed emails. Edward questioned one of Nicholas's decisions, not even criticized, just questioned. Nicholas gave him 10 minutes to leave. His family never recovered. His wife left, his kids cut off Nicholas. 20 years later, the wound is still raw. I asked why she was sharing this. Now, her laugh was bitter. Nothing like her usual tone. Because I've watched Nicholas destroy people for decades, convincing myself it was business, that success required ruthlessness. But watching him do this to you. Someone who saved his company while he was on the golf course. Someone who made my son happy, even if we didn't show it. I can't excuse it anymore. She pulled another paper. Michelle Reeves, VP of Marketing, fired 5 years ago, in a board meeting for suggesting Nicholas's strategy was outdated. James Chin, head of innovation, terminated 3 years ago because he'd received an offer from a competitor and Nicholas wanted to make an example. She looked directly at me. Nicholas and Taylor avoid conflict by creating bigger conflicts. They'd rather destroy relationships than admit fault. I've enabled it for 35 years. I'm sorry. Her hug was brief but firm. She left the folder on my coffee table and walked out, leaving me with evidence of a pattern I had been too close to see. At 2:07 a.m., my phone rang again. I had fallen asleep on the couch. The folder spread out in front of me. Margaret's voice was frantic. Nia destroyed everything. She tried to prove she could manage your systems alone. Didn't want the transition period. She tried accessing backup files, but deleted the main customer database instead. I sat up, fully awake. She deleted the entire database? That SEP's not the worst part. She tried to recover it herself using online software. It corrupted everything. The East Coast operation has been down 6 hours. Estimates say at least 14 more before partial recovery. The database wasn't just names and addresses. It contained 17 years of customer records, purchase histories, support tickets, the foundation of every client relationship. How much? I asked. Conservative estimate $50 million in immediate losses. That doesn't include lawsuits, lost clients, or long-term damage. Her voice cracked. She's been crying in the bathroom for 2 hours. Nicholas has been screaming at everyone. He threw a laptop at the wall. Security is on standby. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction or vindication, just emptiness. Nia had orchestrated my downfall, and now her own incompetence was destroying her. Margaret, document everything. Emails, actions, Nicholas Sepp's words. I already am. Building my own insurance file. But your team could prevented this. My team wouldn't have caused it. When she hung up, I sat in silence, watching sunrise creep across the walls. Somewhere across town, Vertex was losing millions while Nia learned the difference between claiming credit and taking responsibility. At 7 a.m., Taylor came home, disheveled, smelling of whiskey. He didn't sit too close. The database is gone, he said. I know. Dad Sepp's furious. Sepp's threatening to sue Nia, but legal says he can set. He gave her access. Emergency board meetings are underway. Mom Sepp's had panic attacks. He wants me to convince you to sign an NDA, to end this quietly. End what? His public humiliation of me? The 22 resignations? Or Nia Sepp's $50 million mistake? All of it, Sepp's offering $800,000, full severance, extended benefits, and a glowing reference. Just sign the non-compete and stay silent for 2 years. If you sue, he could lose everything. I looked at Taylor. He felt like a stranger wearing my husband Sed's face. He should have thought of that before giving me 5 minutes to clear my desk. I need you to fix this. Not an apology, not an admission, just another demand to protect the Harringtons. I need you to leave, I replied. Steady. He looked at me, awareness flickering. But Harringtons didn't admit fault. He left without another word. Our marriage ended in that moment, even if the papers came later. By noon, my living room had become a startup hub. 22 people with laptops sat across couches, floors, and tables. Logan's daughter Emma worked on homework in the corner. Phoenix Digital, Priya announced, holding up a napkin sketch of a bird rising from flames. The logo wasn't subtle, but neither were we. Marcus secured the domain and social handles. James brought coffee and pizza boxes piled up. The Morrison twins turned sticky notes into a project management wall. Sarah was already calling contacts. Logan arranged incorporation through his brother-in-law. The energy was sharp, focused, determined. We weren't colleagues anymore. We were survivors, building something new from the collapse Nicholas had caused. And in that chaos, I felt more at home than I ever had at Vertex. 3 days later, at 4:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Robert Hoffman, Nicholas Sepp's lawyer, calling for the 3rd time that day. Miss West, Mr. Harrington has authorized me to increase the offer to $800,000. His voice carried the weight of defeat. This is the baseline severance outlined in your contract. That baseline applies to standard termination, I replied, watching the Morrison twins unload computer equipment into our new workspace, a warehouse we had found the day before. Being given 5 minutes to clear my desk in front of 12 witnesses isn't standard. Margaret Lawson can confirm that. Silence followed. Finally, he said, Miss Lawson is no longer authorized to speak on behalf of Vertex Solutions. Typical Nicholas's instinct was always to attack the messenger, even when the problem was of his own making. In that case, the courts will decide, I said. My lawyer will be in touch. I ended the call just as a white Tesla pulled into the lot. Catherine Walsh stepped out, heels clicking against the cracked pavement, surveying the warehouse with the sharp eye of someone who had turned multiple startups into billion-dollar companies. The space itself was rough. 20,000 square feet of concrete, flickering lights, a broken loading dock, and stains that seemed permanent. This is perfect, Catherine announced. It's a disaster, Priya countered, pointing to a ceiling tile releasing dust. No, it's Sepp's hungry space, Catherine replied. It wants to become something. You know where Amazon started. A garage? Google? A garage. USIP's already upgraded. USIP's got walls. She made a quick phone call. Send the contract to my email. Yes, the full amount. Then she turned to me. $3.5 million seed funding. I want 20% equity and a board seat. Logan almost dropped his laptop. You haven't even seen our business plan. I don't need to. I've seen 22 people follow their leader out of security and into risk. That's worth more than any presentation. She paused at the door. Nicholas Harrington once told me emotions have no place in business, right before rejecting my investment proposal. His decision to humiliate you publicly just handed me my next success story. The next morning, she returned with 2 more VCs. They inspected the warehouse, asked about scalability and market reach, and committed another $2 million without incorporation paperwork filed. Phoenix Digital was already valued at $17.5 million. Then came the call that mattered. Richard Henderson, CEO of Henderson Corp. I heard about Vertex, he said, and the database failure. Nita tried explaining why our configurations were lost. She broke down crying during the call. But I remember your team. You personally saved our launch. Logan rebuilt our architecture over a weekend. Priya's data work improved our efficiency by 200%. He paused before continuing. Contracts follow talent, not buildings. We set removing to Phoenix Digital. Immediately. By the end of that day, 3 more clients called Patterson Industries, Morrison Group, Chin Technologies, together worth $30 million annually. Each announced it on LinkedIn in polished but unmistakably critical statements toward Vertex. Stocks down another 5%, Sarah reported, refreshing her screen. That's SEP's 15% since Tuesday. We were still unpacking second-hand desks when Taylor appeared at the doorway, holding roses, red ones. After 6 years of marriage, he still didn't remember I was allergic. "Can we talk?" he asked, shifting uncomfortably in khakis and a polo shirt, his father's uniform. I stepped outside with him. The sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement. "Dad Sep's willing to apologize," Taylor said, holding out the flowers. "He still give you an executive position. Corner office, 20% raise, full benefits." I didn't take them. He thinks this is about office space? It sets a good offer. More than fair. Considering what? That he humiliated me? That Mia erased the database? That 22 people walked out after witnessing it? Taylor set the roses down. They looked out of place, wilting on the asphalt. "He sits my father. And I was your wife." Past tense. Taylor, you made it past tense when you asked me to cover for him instead of standing by me. His face shifted, the first genuine emotion in days. "You still giving up on us, on our marriage." "No, you gave up when you chose loyalty to your family over what was right." For a moment, I thought I saw the man I once loved, but that man was long gone. "I should go," he said. "Yes." He walked to his BMW and left. The roses stayed behind, scattering petals in the wind like Nicholas's plans unraveling. At midnight, an encrypted file arrived from Margaret Lawson, the subject line, "My severance package." It was a 43-minute board meeting recording. The audio was clear, likely from her phone placed in the center of the table. $50 million, a voice said. "Jonathan Cross, board member. He cost us $50 million because he couldn't control his temper." "The database is gone," CFO David Sterling added. "Mia had no authorization. Nicholas gave her full access." Then Margaret Set's calm voice. "You promoted your girlfriend Set's roommate? Christina Set's college roommate? That Set's who you thought could replace the person who built half our infrastructure?" Nicholas Sep's voice was weak. "Mia showed promise. She was ambitious. She was unqualified." Another voice cut in. A hand slammed the table. "This isn't Sept family drama, Harrington. You turned a personal issue into a $50 million failure. More if clients keep leaving." I listened twice, their frustration filling my warehouse office. It wasn't leadership, it was reckless. The next morning, Catherine arrived with a media consultant. "Press conference tomorrow, 2 p.m. Every tech outlet wants a statement. We give them one." "I don't want to appear vindictive," I said. "You want to appear as what you are, a leader who refused to accept humiliation as the cost of employment." She added, "Nicholas is holding his own conference at the same time. He plans to call it a strategic restructuring." Oddly, I felt calm. Let him spin it. Truth has a way of surfacing. We prepared. Logan and Priya drafted my statement. Sarah handled logistics. The Morrison twins secured a backdrop and lighting, making the warehouse look professional. At 1:45 p.m., I stood before cameras, my team of 22 behind me. "Good afternoon," I began. 2 weeks ago, Nicholas Harrington gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk after 6 years of building Vertex's infrastructure. Those 5 minutes taught me that competence threatens the incompetent, that loyalty means little to those who never earned it, and that sometimes the best outcome is leaving a place that never valued you. The cameras clicked. Reporters typed rapidly. Phoenix Digital is proof that culture beats hierarchy, that respect outperforms fear. In 2 weeks, WeSip secured $5.5 million in funding and retained $30 million in annual contracts. WeSip done what Vertex said would take years, because we have what they lost. Trust. Meanwhile, across town, Nicholas began his own conference. Margaret kept sending updates. He Seps sweating through his makeup. Nia Seps behind him scrolling on her phone. Looks like she Seps job hunting during the press conference. He just said strategic restructuring for enhanced agility, and a reporter laughed. Someone shared a screenshot from a financial network. Both conferences were shown side by side. I stood calm, surrounded by my team. Nicholas was red-faced, stammering, with Nia openly disengaged. A stock ticker ran beneath both feeds. Vertex Solutions down another 8%. That evening, while we celebrated, my phone rang from a blocked number. I nearly ignored it, but instinct made me answer. Please don't hang up. It was Nia, but gone was the polished voice she used at Vertex. Now she sounded young, desperate. I know you hate me. I don't hate you, I replied. I feel nothing. Her breath caught. I've been terminated. They called it strategic differences, but everyone knows it's because of the database. I'm being blacklisted. No one will interview me. I have student loans, rent, my mom's medical bills. I know I took credit for your work. I know what I did. But please, one recommendation, something to say I'm not completely incompetent. She was crying, and I couldn't forget she was only 26, ambitious, reckless, still young enough to think those traits were enough. Nia, I said. She fell silent, except for soft sobs. You claimed credit for the Henderson account. You called me overwhelmed and suggested I should be replaced. You smiled when Nicholas gave me 5 minutes to pack 6 years of work. You took credit for others' success. Now you need to own your failure. That's the only recommendation I can give you. The call lasted exactly 5 minutes. 3 days later, the headlines broke. Nicholas Harrington steps down as CEO of Vertex Solutions. The press release was corporate spin, pursuing new opportunities. Time for fresh leadership. Grateful for years of service. Everyone knew the truth. The board gave him a choice: resign quietly or be fired outright. Either way, the outcome was the same. That evening, Eleanor called. Her voice was drained, but oddly lighter. He's moving into the guest house. 35 years of marriage. And this is what broke us. Not the affairs. Not his ego. Watching him destroy you. Someone who only made him successful, purely out of spite. That's when I knew the man I married was gone. If he ever existed, don't apologize for me. Don't comfort me. This is freedom, even if it came 30 years too late. That night, the warehouse felt different. The Morrison twins had hung lights, softening the concrete. Sarah brought plants that somehow survived in the industrial space. Marcus played quiet jazz through a sound system. We did it, Priya said, handing me champagne. Real champagne. Catherine had sent cases. Did what? We won. Call it David versus Goliath, or the rebels against the empire. Whatever you like, we won. Gerald, a former Vertex supervisor who joined us recently, raised his mop like a torch. He'd done the same gesture weeks earlier in solidarity. Now it was victory. To second chances and first-class revenge, he shouted. Glasses lifted all around. But I wasn't thinking of revenge. I was thinking of the new contract, Global Tech, which Vertex had pursued for 2 years. Their CEO called me directly. We saw both press conferences. We saw how Vertex treats the people who built them. We work with builders, not destroyers. Our valuation hit $50 million. Not bad for a company that started in my living room with pizza boxes and panic. It's sets, not revenge, I told Priya, watching my team, my chosen family, working late because they wanted to, not because someone was counting hours. It's sets, just success. Revenge is only a side effect. Somewhere across town, Nicholas sat alone in a guest house behind the mansion he could no longer afford. His empire collapsed in less than a month. He was only just realizing that when you give someone 5 minutes to pack their life, they might take everything with them. The next morning, Margaret Lawson walked into our warehouse at 7:23 a.m., carrying a banker's box. Her expression was different. Determined, but with something harder behind it. "I need 5 minutes of your time," she said. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She placed the box on my desk. A real desk this time, scarred but solid. I've been Vertex's legal director for 12 years. I've watched Nicholas ruin careers, break employment laws, cover up harassment. I documented everything. She opened the box, revealing neatly labeled folders, by date, by violation, every illegal termination, every settlement, every time he screamed at someone until they cried, then forced me to draft resignation paperwork. Logan looked up. "Why keep all of this?" "Insurance," Margaret replied. I knew eventually he'd turn on me too. I was right. He told the board I should have stopped your walkout, that I failed my duty. She pulled out a thick folder. This one's my favorite. 3 years of emails where he explicitly ordered me to ignore legal protocol. Then she looked directly at me. "I want to be your chief legal officer. In return, I still make sure Nicholas never works in tech again. My revenge has been brewing for 12 years. I know where all the bodies are buried because I helped dig the graves." Priya whistled. "That sip's dark." "That's Sep's business," Margaret corrected. "Nicholas taught me that. Now I shall teach him what happens when you create enemies who know your secrets." I realized then she hadn't been complicit. She'd been collecting evidence. "Welcome to Phoenix Digital," I said. Her first act? Schedule a settlement negotiation. "Neutral ground," she insisted. "The Marriott downtown, conference room 12, $800 an hour. Nicholas will cover it." Thursday, 10 a.m. I arrived early. The room was polished, expensive, soulless. Nicholas entered 15 minutes late. A tactic that once held weight, but no longer. His Armani suit hung loose. His face thinner from stress. His lawyer, Robert Hoffman, looked equally drained. "Let's Seps make this quick," Robert said, sliding papers across. "Mr. Harrington offers $1.2 million, 24 months of full benefits, and immediate vesting of stock options." Margaret leaned forward, plus a written statement, acknowledging the termination was mishandled and a mutual non-disparagement clause. Nicholas's jaw tightened, but he nodded. The man who had never admitted fault was about to sign a document, confirming his failure. The room was silent, except for the sound of pens. His signature was smaller, weaker than I remembered. When he slid the papers to me, our eyes met. No words, just unspoken messages. His said, "You destroyed me," mine replied. "You destroyed yourself." His said, "I gave you everything." Mine answered, "You gave me 5 minutes." As I endorsed the check, $1.22 million, more than my parents had seen in their lifetime, I felt no triumph, no vindication, only emptiness. The emptiness of winning a war that never should have started. Nicholas stood, paused at the door. For a moment I thought he might speak, but Harrington men didn't apologize. They just retreated. After he left, Margaret showed me something on her phone. Security footage from Vertex the night before his resignation. "Tom from security sent this. He thought you should see it." Grainy footage showed Nicholas standing alone in what had been my office, the timestamp 9:47 p.m. He stayed there 20 minutes, talking to an empty room. Tom said he could read his lips for part of it. Margaret added, He kept saying, I gave her 5 minutes. She took everything. He sips wrong, I said quietly. He took everything from himself. I just refused to go down with him. Margaret nodded. Tom wanted you to know something else. He was the one who made sure every angle of that Tuesday was captured. The boardroom, the walkout, everything. Later, he told me that watching me stay composed while Nicholas unraveled was the most remarkable thing he had seen in 15 years of security work. Not long after, I got a text from Eleanor. Can you meet? Important. We met at a downtown cafe, the type where people pay $12 for coffee because they think price equals quality. She looked strangely younger, even though the past month had clearly aged her. I filed for divorce this morning, she said, without hesitation. She'd served Nicholas papers at the country club during the board meeting, no less, for maximum impact. Don't pity me, she added. This is 35 years overdue. I excused his cruelty as strength, his affairs as stress relief, his destruction of careers as business. But watching him ruin you, someone who only succeeded just because he could, that's when I realized I'd been enabling a monster. She showed me legal documents on her phone. I'm taking half houses, investments, even his wine collection he cared more for than family. The prenup won't hold. Too many documented affairs. When I asked about Taylor, her face darkened. Taylor chose his father. He could have stood by you, but instead asked you to swallow humiliation for his comfort. He's exactly what I raised him to be, a coward who mistakes compliance for loyalty. As she left, Eleanor paused. The Harrington dynasty took 3 generations to build. Nicholas destroyed it in 5 minutes. The same 5 minutes he gave you. There steps a certain poetry in that. It was true. Nicholas lost his company, his reputation, his marriage, and his legacy, all because he couldn't resist humiliating the very person who made him successful. The settlement check cleared the next day. $1.2 million in my account. It felt like both justice and blood money. 6 months earlier, that figure would have been a dream. Now it was just capital for something far bigger. Our warehouse had completely transformed. The flickering lights were replaced with warm LEDs. Logan said improved productivity. Priya picked new epoxy flooring to match our logo. We had proper desks, ergonomic chairs, and even a kitchen that no longer reeked of neglect. Emma, Logan's daughter, proudly showed her math test, 98%. Thanking Priya for tutoring her. It had become routine. Emma, doing homework here while the team supported her. We weren't just a company anymore, we were a family, the kind of support system corporations promise but rarely deliver. That morning, Marcus updated our celebration board. Phoenix Digital's valuation had reached $75 million. Richardson Industries had signed on, adding 40 employees and 12 clients. People didn't join us for stability. They joined because they knew our story. Every resume came with a note. They wanted to work where people mattered more than profit. Priya's parents even visited from Mumbai, performing a blessing in our conference room. Her mother touched my shoulder and said, "You gave my daughter purpose beyond a paycheck. That's worth more than any valuation." I was reviewing contracts when Taylor appeared, looking like a shadow of the man I married. He handed me divorce papers and quietly asked if we could talk. We sat in the break room, our upgraded one with working coffee machines. He explained he'd been in therapy twice a week for months, finally learning about family patterns and enabling. "I should have defended you," he admitted. "When Dad humiliated you, I should have stood up. Instead, I chose comfort over courage. I lost you because I couldn't stand up to him." He pushed the papers toward me. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need you to know I understand now what I threw away." When I asked if he was still at Vertex, he gave a bitter laugh. "Nobody's at Vertex. Straighten Corp absorbed it last month, kept the patents, and fired everyone. Dad's reputation ruined the rest." We signed the papers in silence. Before leaving, he said, "I hope you find someone who values you right away, not after it's too late." Ending our marriage felt less like loss and more like clearing space for a better beginning. Margaret soon appeared with news. Nicholas had updated his LinkedIn independent business consultant, working out of a strip mall office above a tax prep service. His latest post about leadership had 3 likes, 2 fake accounts, one a spam marketer. "Sad," I said. "No," Margaret corrected. "That's consequences." Nicholas now had no clients, no employees, and no future in tech. I thought of him once, standing at his mahogany table, counting down my dismissal. Now he had endless time with nothing to fill it. No power, no family, no audience, just empty LinkedIn posts nobody cared about. Margaret asked if I felt bad for him. "No," I replied. "I feel nothing. He's just a cautionary tale now. A footnote in our origin story." Later at our weekly all-hands, the energy was different. Real engagement instead of people checking their phones. The twins shared a new framework. Sarah reported growth, and Gerald, our chief morale officer, announced Friday's team lunch. Looking around at 40 people who had chosen to build this company, I thought about those 5 minutes. What Nicholas thought was an ending had actually been my beginning. He gave me 5 minutes to pack my career. In return, I gained a company built on respect, a family built on trust, and proof that dignity always outlasts humiliation. "Hey," Priya said, appearing beside me. "Catherine Walsh just called. Bloomberg wants to feature us. The company that rose from a 5-minute firing." "Tell them yes," I replied, "but make sure they know this isn't sept the story of a firing. It's sept the story of what happens when good people refuse to let small people make them smaller." The warehouse buzzed with energy. Somewhere across town, Nicholas sat in his rented office, refreshing LinkedIn, waiting for likes that never came. The difference between us wasn't just winning or losing. It was that I had learned 5 minutes could build an empire, while he was still trying to understand how 5 minutes had destroyed his. If this story of corporate karma had you rooting for justice, hit that like button. My favorite part was when 22 employees silently walked out, turning humiliation into a movement. What was yours? Share in the comments, and don't miss more stories like this one.